It is Saturday, July 4th, 2026, Independence Day. It's a very significant day in the United States. We declared independence from Britain. But what I want to do today is talk about relationships. And that's what I like to do. It's, because they're very important to us. Air, water, food, sex. Sexual relationships are important. And, they can be challenging. And what I like to do is use criminal cases to, kind of help men and women, whatever, but help people in their relationships. Not because I'm some genius. It's just I've had 50 years for trial and error. I've wanted to become successful, and I know that I'm the locus of control in situations. It will be my bad strategy causing my problems. So I tried to learn how to solve my problems, and and study dating and relationships and how I can make them better. I learned a ton, and I think I can pass that on to other men, but and women, whatever, if they want better relationships. And oftentimes I use criminal cases, and we talk about the dual mating strategy. You always want to be the alpha bang and not the beta male provider. And in today's story, we're going to talk about a criminal case, Bruce Miller and Sharee Miller, diabolical lady. And I'll probably start at the end of the story or whatever, or near the end of the story. I'll just so I can kind of make a point on it. But Sharee Miller's diabolically evil woman. But she knew how to play men, and she used her sexuality to do it. And I kind of was, what I say, incentivized or motivated to talk about this because earlier in the week, I got my blood boiling because, not because I want my opinion listened to, no, because the video I commented earlier on the week, watch that one, but how beta males have sex or whatever. But when you give out bad advice about sexuality, or you give bad advice to men and bad practices to men in regards to relationships, this can cause severe problems. I mean, severe. And so, where, people can lose their lives, lose their homes, lose their kids. So, I get a little heated, when I hear bad advice being given out, whether they're pandering to women or whatever. I don't know what their incentive is, but all I know is bad advice. And so, like I said, this week, I heard a guy talking about, women don't need to be 304s, and, women need to hold their standards, and, women don't care about sex. It's the men that care about sex, and women do it for our benefit. Just all BS. All BS to where if men listen to that, you're going to allow yourself to be finessed, right? You don't want to be a beta male. You don't want to be that kind of, judging women for being sexual, judging women for acting upon their lustful desires. Women do it, men do it, it's not something we often hear because women keep their sexuality private. But, if you ever heard a woman say, I just need some dick. I just need some dick tonight. You'd be like, oh, I don't think they say that. It could be a single woman, say that. Oh, trust me, they do say that. And I've encountered, my 50 years, didn't realize it at the time. They didn't say it to me. But after the encounter was over, I was like, oh, she just needs some dick tonight. So when they don't call you back, it's, and you had a great time, and, so, sometimes they do, but anyway, and in this case today, Sharee Miller uses her sexuality, and she uses it on beta males, and they're very susceptible because beta males have a hard time getting, sexuality out, in life. So, and women know this, and so she's a predator, and she's diabolically a predator, but she knows how easy it is to, do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this. This is a while back, so it's in the 90s, but it's AOL. It was a chat room. She was in the chat rooms. I'll tell you a story in a minute. But I'm going to give you the chat blog or whatever. She's trying to, she actually is planning the murder of her husband. She's getting a guy that she's met online to basically kill her husband because she wants the insurance money. So, so he's fallen in love with her, and she's alleged abuse and all this kind of stuff, and So, the regular, but she's also having an affair with him. So what do we see in these criminal cases? When men, fall victim to a woman, a beta male man too, falling victim to a woman, the dual mating strategy when he's not alpha bang and he's beta male provider. And this guy he was the owner of a business. I'll get into that in a minute. But she wanted his life insurance because the money from the divorce was not going to be sufficient. So, but anyway, so so she wants his life insurance, and so she gets this guy Jerry Cassidy to get so pissed off she manipulates him, and so she says she was abused and stuff like that, but I got the they're able to pull up, and like I said, in the 90s, a lot of people listening to this are not going to know what an AOL chat room is. It's like if you're on a desktop computer, you're basically texting. You got your keyboard, you got your monitor in front of you, and you're basically just texting. You're typing something like, "Hey, my name's Steve," and then they type back. And just if anyone hasn't used the AOL chat rooms or whatever, but those were big in the day, and like I said, she was on those, and so and she met several men on there. She had several different screen names. One of her screen names was something about I just want to get laid, horny like 1 2 3 4. What was another one? Slow loving or something like that. So like I said, the video earlier in the week, women don't like sex. Women don't. Well, she knows the power of her sexuality. Why would she choose those screen names, right? I mean, she's very manipulative. But real quick, I wanted to see if I gotta get some light here. But I'm gonna read the chat logs of Jerry, who is her affair mate, and he has become so pissed off, and I'll go into that in a minute, because let's see. Let me try to read this here. Okay, so here's Jerry and her talking, and just think about this. Bruce is her husband, okay? Just try to set it up. Bruce is Sharee Miller's husband, and he's at work, and he works at he owns a scrapyard, like business, auto repair business, and so he's just at work. He's in the office, doing his job, and he's a good dude, and Sharee and this Jerry guy are planning his murder, apparently, right? Just a good guy. Think if you were that guy, just, or girl, you're hanging out in an office, right? And, and someone's planning your murder. So, hit your wife, right? Here it is. Jerry, says her. Jerry, I'm scared. If this don't work, he will hurt me bad. So she's, reaching out to her buddy Jerry, the guy she's having an affair with, telling her she's scared, and if basically saying, if this doesn't work, Bruce will hurt her, which he never has. He never was abusive to her. Jerry says it will work, and then he says, "What is the fastest way to get into the yard?" That means that it was an auto salvage yard from 75. That's a road. So he's asking her how to, basically get into the building faster to kill her husband. She says, 75 to Mount Morris, exit. Like she's given directions to get a pie, Listen to me. I will call Bruce at 5 p.m., she says. So she's already telling Jerry, she's going to lure her husband or whatever, to, make sure she calls him so he's, distracted. This is what your wife is saying. Just think about how diabolical this is, right? And women can be. If you're not respected and you're not loved, I tell you guys. She says to Jerry, "Is the gun loud?" Jerry says, "Somewhat." She says, "Just do it and get the hell out of there." Jerry says, "I want him to know who I am," because Jerry's mad because he's been abusing her, which he hasn't. So he wants, this is vengeance. There's a little bit of honor in Jerry killing. It's just, And then she says, "Jerry, please." And then she says, "He will know," And then Jerry says, "But not for long." And he does kill him. He shoots him in the head with he goes into the office and shoots him in the head with a 20 gauge shotgun. And then she says, "Are you going to be able to live with this the rest of your life?" "I can," she says. "Because I can," she says. I mean, think of that. He says, I love you, and yes, I can. So that's it. And then he goes and kills, um, you know, kills her husband, and you know, I mean, is that not diabolical or what? You know, it shows you how, you know, I mean, that's evil. Your wife was, I mean, again, how do you know, how do you not know you're that disrespected, you're that unliked, you know? So let me get down into the story and tell you, you know, get to the lessons. But again, you know, women can be, you know, you know, diabolical at times, right? So it was Sharee Miller because she married Bruce Miller. Bruce Miller was the owner of I think it's S&D or B&D, S&D junkyard. He was this all happens in Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan was a big auto plant area or whatever. The General Motors and all that had like a lot of auto facilities. Apparently not as lucrative now because a lot of the jobs and industry there has left. But this happens in Flint, Michigan. He had, and Bruce was 20 years older than Sharee. See, so that there you go, right there, right? Why is he, you know, obviously he's going to be attracting men. You know, just think if you're 40 and you're a 20-year-old coming on to you, that's going to be, you know, that's going to be an incentive for men, right? So anyway, you know, Bruce is the owner of the like I said, the junkyard. And she goes to work there. Sharee Miller has 3 kids, single mom, you know. I mean, I mean, to me, you know, I have no problem with single mom, but, you know, what I'm saying is, I mean, anyway, you know, you're coming with 3 liabilities, huge liabilities, but she has no skills. I'm just saying this is not being mean. She has no really skills. She doesn't have any money. She's lived off of men her whole life. That's how I kind of got into this case, because I started, you know, hearing her story, and she was starting to talk about all these guys. It's like, dude, she's just marrying guys to find places to live and shit, you know. Because when she was with Bruce, or sorry, when she was, you know, kind of dating Bruce, she was living with another dude. So, you know, she went from his house to Bruce's house, right? So anyway, so she gets a job at, basically Bruce is now her boss because he's the owner of that junkyard, and so he's going to be her boss. And they're just professional. They're going to have a lot of cops over at this. This is a HPD Union building. I'm 22 years with the Houston Police Department. I retired as the sergeant, but right behind me there's a bunch of cops and DPS because of the deal tonight. But anyway, so it's gonna be a huge fireworks show just right over there. I'm gonna have it on my Instagram, which my Instagram's in the description. But it's gonna be huge right where that building, like near that building. It's a huge fireworks show in Houston. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, so she starts working for Bruce and like worked for him for like a month as admin. She's doing admin and, you know, just you know, books, you know, and again, she's just single mom, just trying to make it, you know. But she's a predator. She knows that this Bruce guy, you know, if she saddles up to him and gets, you know, sexual with him or whatever, you know, and flirts with him, you know, she could probably, you know, live with him and receive the benefits from living with him, right? So, and she does. They became friends first. And here's how predatory they are. Is they're friends first, and then I guess his father dies, and he's obviously sad about that. And so she's with him as his friend, you know, the day his father dies, and they're sitting on the couch and they start kissing, and one thing leads to another, and they bang, you know. So, you know, I guess that cheered him up, and you know, he fell in love, you know. So, you know, now they get married pretty quickly, you know. And because he was born in 1951, she was born in 1971, and like I said, 20-year difference. And she's just an average chick, but she knows number one, how to be sexy, and she knows number two, how to not only be sexy, but she knows how to you know, dress herself up sexy, right? And but she's just an average chick, but that's the power of sexuality, you know. It's the power that women know they have. You know, especially women that know how to, talk the talk and walk the sexy walk, right? Anyway, so, but what she does, one thing, and this is going to be a sign of disrespect that men need to pay attention to. If this happens to you, you need to bail quickly. She maxes out all his credit cards. So does that not tell you she's there for, finances? Yeah, right away she maxes it out, and maxing out his credit cards, that doesn't need to be done, unless she's told him, and I'm sure he wouldn't want that to happen. Anyway, no, you see that happen? That's someone don't give a damn about you. They only give a damn about their own agenda, right? So anyway, but yeah, that was the first sign, right? And then, Bruce is working a lot. He's into racing cars and stuff, and so they spend a lot of time away from each other, right? And, because he's a beta male provider, she doesn't care, I mean, she's there for the benefits. She's there for the money and the place to live and stuff like that, And so anyway, see all the troopers, and we get a lot of troopers here in Houston because our mayor's John Whitmire, and he was in Austin, so he's got a good relationship with DPS, so they're always coming to Houston to help us out. But anyway, that's cool, I like that. But anyway, so I digress again. But anyway, I'll get through this pretty quick. But anyway, so so they're not spending a lot of time apart. So, Bruce wants her to. She's getting kind of bored, and so he doesn't want to cause any problems for her. So he wants to keep his 20 young 20-year-old or whatever 20-year younger wife. He wants to keep her happy. So he gets her a computer. And this is in the 90s. So all this happens in the 90s. So in the 90s it was desktop stuff, right? And he got her, and back in the day, I mean, now it's probably ancient, but he got her a badass monitor and badass desktop computer, and that's when she found American Online. A lot of guys and gals not going to know what American Online is, but it's basically you had a CD and you install it on a computer, and it would dial up. It would go anyway. It would dial up 7 numbers or whatever, and then you get on this you're online, you're on the internet, I guess. I'm not that computer savvy, but I had it when it came out. We got it, and that was so neat. You're able to get in these chat rooms talking. I was young at the time, so wasn't doing anything nefarious, but talking to friends. And, hey, how's it going? And oh my God, I mean, I remember the first time we downloaded it. And, I mean, we thought it was just so cool. And then you start seeing a lot of, again, I was young, but you were starting to see, you could see just because you're looking at it, a lot of stuff went sexual on American Online chat rooms, stuff like that. But anyway, and that's what it did for her. Bruce was trying to give her, a computer to, give her something to do, meaning, some fun or something, I guess. And she had a business. She sold Mary Kay, which she probably lost money on Mary Kay, that was her, side hustle or whatever. And she was working with Bruce at the time, before they met. And so she allegedly kept doing that. But, a lot of those, and Mary Kay's, was it MLM, they call them marketing level management or whatever, where it's a pyramid basically. So a lot of people don't make money in those. I mean, you can, but most don't. And they give you the stories of the, 2 people who made money, you can make $300,000 a year. Yeah, but anyway, for most they lose money buying the inventory. But anyway, and that's kind of what her deal was. So, but that was kind of the excuse to get the computer, right? So, So anyway, so she's got this now, but now when she gets on the American Online, for her, just like it was for me, oh my God. So what happens, especially with women, this is the women thing, but like this is why the Instagram and Facebook, it's not dangerous. Like, let's say a lot of guys are like, oh, my girl, I don't want her having an Instagram, I don't want her Facebook. If she's not on there that much, it's not a big deal. But the problem is if you're having problems in your relationship, she's going to seek out attention from other men. That's what women do, and that's the problem. And that's kind of what happened with Bruce and her, is that she was, he was a beta male provider. So she's, she's not the alpha bang. But if you're, again, I talk about dual mating strategy, if the alpha bang, then it doesn't matter, But if you're a beta male provider, she's going to go on, American Online and look for, alpha bangs. It's just women love men. I'll say that, and men you need to learn this. Women love men, and they love attention from men. They also love attention from hot men. So, and it's intoxicating to them. Women won't tell you that, but they love men. So anyway, so yeah, she's loving it, and all her stuff is very sexual. Well, she ends up meeting a guy named Jerry Cassidy, and he has just gone through a big deal. He was a police officer in Minnesota, and something happened to where their department had a scandal. And it was like he found out that basically his department and other officers had fudged some information or something. Basically it was a bad investigation, and they were doing things that were unethical and illegal. I believe something like that. But Jerry believed. Said I need to do something about this. This ain't right. He could, and then, in the police world, with the police for 22 years, in the police world, you best piss off your buddies. I'm just saying there's, but, sometimes, know what battles to fight, right? You see someone injuring a prisoner. No, that doesn't happen. Seriously, you don't let that happen. That's your morals. As a person, I don't care who you are. A lot of times, you corrupt, you let people get hurt. No, I would never let someone, abuse a no, hell no, so there's not, and most people don't have that wicked heart to where they let that happen, so yeah, and there's big, in the police department where they push that a lot. I'm just saying this as a kind of, they push that tons, don't be afraid to report, there's a lot of protections for you, and it is 100%. So there's a big culture in the police department of, especially nowadays, don't cover for each other, and it's true, and it kind of went the other way, is where, people were calling people out for dumb stuff, how they turn, you yank the wheel, and it's like, they don't mean that, dude. I saw someone stealing paper. No, but anyway, but I'll digress on that, but let's keep going with this case so we can get done with this quickly. But there's important lessons here, because a man loses his life, and he was just a good guy, thinking he was with a good girl. He liked a good, stable relationship, like we all do. He didn't want to go out there. He was a little old. Bruce Miller was a little older. He was with Sharee Miller, and he was happy just to be with her, and he didn't need to, be banging her every day. He just wanted a wife, he just wanted a woman around, So, he's okay if she had time off and time away, But anyway, she meets Jerry Cassidy, and like I said, Jerry Cassidy, going back to that story, he ends up having to report this to his boss, and that gets out to his other police officer buddies, and apparently that he was not well liked after that. I don't know why, I don't know the specifics, but basically he's blackballed, and the relationship and the environment becomes so bad, he gets demoted from his position wherever he was at, and that's a hard pill to swallow, especially as a man. And thinking you're doing the right thing, and now you're demoted, and now everyone hates you, and it just became a really negative situation in his life. He ended up resigning from the police department, and he was a homicide detective, believe it or not. So he had done 9 years. He wanted to go to the FBI. That was the same track I wanted to do, but I went all the way through the process through DEA and Drug Enforcement Administration, and I became a sergeant with the Houston Police Department. So I just stayed with Houston Police. But that was going to be my same trajectory, and I'm glad I stayed with Houston Police Department. Was an awesome job. But anyway, but that's what he was trying to do. And now, after all this crap, he just says he's exhausted, burnt out with law enforcement. He's depressed, and FBI is not on his radar anymore. And so he just quits basically, and starts to think, I gotta find other work. I think he goes to Kansas City, and he's married. Jerry's married at the time. And, when you get depressed, what's he start doing? He starts drinking, and starts, just being depressed. And so what happens then? His wife doesn't like, and I'm telling you, this is a lesson to learn, is, yeah, you're going through sad times, but your wife shouldn't have to put up with that. Now, she can try to help you through those, and we can all have down times. But as a man, you need to solve your own problems. You need to you don't have to do it alone. Find a buddy, get a therapist, whatever you need. Get some books. Go get a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever you need, and fix it. Because your wife is not there to fix that for you. And if she sees you not fixing it, then, you know, she's gonna leave, and she leaves him. So now he's left his job. Now his wife's left him, and this is the old country song. My wife's left me, my dog's left me, you know, whatever. But so anyway, that's what happens. And so now he's like, I gotta get my crap back together, you know. So he goes and starts working for Harrods. It's a casino, and I believe Kansas City must be like Indian reservation there or something. But he goes and starts working security for Harrods, and he starts getting his shit back together. And you know, they showed some pictures, and he looked good, you know. He started getting the stuff back together, and so started looking great, and that's when he met Sharee Miller online. That's the danger of dating apps, you know, because you got, like I said, I've said this before. How do you know someone knows what they're talking about on YouTube? Because stuff's corroborated. I said, you know, these online things and dating apps are predator. Are ways for predators to, you know, seek out, you know, prey and victims. And, you know, Sharee Miller, she was there for Jerry, and Jerry, you know, had just gotten divorced, and, you know, was in a bad way. And I'm sure now he's starting to feel better. And, oh, here's a hot, you know, I mean, she's making herself sexy, but like I said, she's average. Here's this hot chick talking to him on American Online, giving him attention, you know. So he falls in love with her online, you know. She changes her screen name to Jerry's Fool. Jerry's Fool, and he changed his name to Sharee's Fool. You know, that's already a little moist right there, guys. You know, don't do that. Anyway, so that's what they do, and they not only, and then he moves from Kansas City. Jerry does. He moves from Kansas City and starts working for another Harrods in Reno, Nevada, and he's still working security and having a good time. And Sharee ends up using her like Mary Kay, she allegedly has some work conferences she needs to go to in Reno all the time now. And when she goes to Reno, she's banging Jerry. So you see, women aren't sexual. Like I said in the video last week, the guy's like, oh, they don't like sex. And it's just a dopamine hit. This lady's going all the way from, I don't even know where she lives, but several states away, I think. But just, you know, she's going from where she lives. I'm drawing a blank with where she lives. I think it's Florida. But anyway, and she's going to Reno. You know, no, I'm sorry, Michigan. I already said it. Sorry, Flint. So she's going from Michigan to Reno, Nevada. That's a good plane trip to bang a dude. You're telling me that women don't want it? They just do it for a dopamine hit? Come on, they love sex, you know. So she starts banging Jerry, you know, and so Jerry, you know, and this is another lesson to learn, guys. Do not, you know, keep your own identity. You know, don't lose yourself into a woman. Jerry falls badly in love with a lady who's married. Once again, we have an affair going on. When we see a man become a victim of homicide in a relationship, what do we see going on? She alleges abuse. That's not going on. This is what we see. I'm not saying, you know, but she alleges there's abuse that's not going on, usually sexual and physical abuse, which that's what she said, and which Bruce was not doing that. But she was telling Jerry that, and Jerry was, you know, we got the protector instinct, and so Jerry was getting pissed off, and so, you know, and he's also falling in love, you know, and people were saying he's almost bipolar, you know, like when she was in Reno and they were banging and they were together, he was so happy, and when she left, he'd get depressed. See, that's you're putting too much of your happiness on a person. Happiness needs to come from inside you. Because let's say she dies, or whatever, she has to move to, you know, Zimbabwe. You know, like, I mean, people will leave, you know, or things will leave. And that's why they say your happiness can't come from the exterior. It has to come from within, you know. And then the exterior will help, you know, adds to your, you know, fulfillment in life, right? So anyway, but he's put it all on her, right? So that's why when she tells stories, you know, that's why with his happiness and his sadness, if she's not happy or whatever, things are going bad in his life or her life, he thinks he's got to control them, and you can't control anything or anybody, you know, well, and we got to learn that as humans, and hope you guys learn that, and you know, hey, you know, how to, the only way to happiness is cease worrying about things beyond your control. Epictetus, you know, that's that quote, and it's important. So, but anyway, so she starts manipulating him, and not only with the abuse, but she has 3 kids, like I already said. She had a tubal ligation prior to meeting Jerry, a year before meeting Jerry, because she didn't want any more kids. But she's gonna concoct stories now to Jerry that he's now gotten her pregnant, and which is impossible. And she alleges that Bruce beat her up the night before, and she creates pictures of, she got these bruises on her, and I mean, she made them up or whatever. And so, he gets more mad, and it caused her to have a miscarriage. And so now Jerry's pissed. Think about that. These are stories. And women do love stories. They love to be storytellers. A lot of them think they are great storytellers. They love the emotion of, they love reading books. They love reading sex books too. Women, I used to, I'll give this a little info. I used to have this girlfriend, she loved reading them sex books, and instead of watching like porn, she would, if she knew she wanted to get it on with me, she'd start reading like penthouse forum letters. And some people might not know it, Google it. But she'd start reading an article, and she would get so turned on. So yes, that's how I learned. That's how you learn in your 50 years what turns women on. They love reading about sex. Anyway, so so he's now Bruce's, public enemy number one, which none of this is happening. She's just creating these, and then we've seen this before. I got another video where this happens. A lady does the same thing, and she has another guy kill her husband, just like in this case. So anyway, then she says, and then she creates a fake email account that's supposedly her husband's, and he sends Jerry a message saying, "Hey Jerry, I just talked to my wife, and she's gonna have an abortion. She's got twins, but those bastard kids are making her." And so those are Jerry's kids, those are Jerry's. He apparently got her pregnant, and again, I guess, with twins. And he's like, she doesn't like being fat, so she's gonna go ahead and get an abortion. And Jerry's like, no, what? So he's trying to call her, and she's like putting him off, like, hey, I'm busy right now. I gotta go to a work thing or something, and I'll call you next week or some shit. So you know what she's doing? She's got him all spun up now, and he's like, oh my God, And then so the next day she sends another email from her husband. It's a fake email, and it's like, yep, Jerry, just letting you know, she had it. She had the abortion. It worked out, thanks for, he says, thanks for helping out my relationship. And so Jerry just, beyond fucking pissed, And so this is it. She's beaten, she's getting abused. And so, he's got to do something about this, And, she's had an abortion, and she lost a baby, she had a miscarriage, so, he's done. Like, and she can't get divorced because, again, another story created by her. She's a very good storyteller, and women sometimes can be, right? But she can't get divorced because Bruce, who runs a junkyard, has too many connections to the mafia, which is all fake. He doesn't have any connections to the mafia, but that's what she says, right? So that's what she tells Jerry. That's why they have to have the affair, because she can't divorce and she can't get the money. So she can't leave him, but if he gets murdered, then she can get his life insurance, which is way more than she could get in a divorce. She knew this, and it's a lot of money because Bruce was rich, and then it'd be much better for them, And so Jerry's like, heck yeah, it'll stop her from being abused, and I'll be able to marry her, and we'll have much more money, and but Jerry's doing it kind of, like I said, that's an honor thing, right? And so, they plan the murder with her. She plans the murder with him. And yeah, I read you the script, and he goes there and with a 20 gauge shotgun and shoots her husband in the head. And she's so diabolical. She calls her brother, hey, I haven't seen Bruce. Because the person that's involved in it can never, be the one that finds him, because then they'll be suspicious, right? I can't find Bruce. Can you go check his job? Which she knows he's been murdered there, right? Well, poor brother and sister-in-law, she calls 911, and she's like, oh my God, I see my husband here, and no, I'm sorry, my brother-in-law, and he's not breathing, and he's got blood coming from his head. The poor lady, that's trauma to see, a head blown off with a shotgun, So anyway, so that happened, right? And so now, they find him, police come, whatever. But since Jerry was a homicide detective prior to that, he did a good job where he took the wallet, so he stole the wallet to make it look like a robbery. And so it wasn't just a lot of times you'll have a murder, but they won't take any items from the murder, and then they'll think, okay, well, it's it's not a robbery because obviously they would have taken the jewelry or whatever, right? So, but he knew to take his wallet. And so he took his wallet, and so the police thought it was a robbery. And they also started focusing, and this is when you get with diabolical women and disrespectful women, a former boyfriend and a guy who worked for her husband, Bruce, who owed him $5,000, becomes prime suspect. And they take all his guns away, and, you know, and they think that he's done it. His name was John Hutchison, I believe. But it was, you know, her online boyfriend, you know, but she's not saying anything. Sharee's not saying anything, you know, and she's letting her old boyfriend go down for this, right? But, you know, he doesn't. He's able to clear himself. But again, look what he has to go through. This, when you get in bad relationships, this is why I get so intense about this stuff. This is why I do videos. Look what happens when you don't understand relationships and you don't understand how they work and you don't understand that you need to be King Daddy. You need to be the hero. You need to be respected. And if you're disrespected, women do not give. And this is any woman. This is the way they operate. These are features, not bugs. And if anyone thinks I'm hating on women, I am not. But I'm just saying how they work. And women could give two shits about a guy that doesn't do anything for them. Women, and that's the way they work. And I like things like this, but you just got to know it. If you can't do anything for a woman, they don't care. They don't care. So, you know, you could fall dead in the street and they really don't care. We act like women are empathetic and loving and to people they want to be. And that's very few. I'm telling you. God made it that way. It is what it is. You know? So, but yeah, you know, quick aside, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine and, female friend of mine, and I was saying how, you know, I was going to go, get a testosterone shot, you know, TRT baby. But I do that, and I just paid my car off. I just this week I paid my final payment on my car after 6 years. It was great, right? So I was saying I was gonna go into the place, and it's all ladies that work there, and I was gonna make a little joke, you know, and say, hey, you know, hey, how you? They usually say, how you doing? Oh, you know, and I went a little earlier, you know, and I knew they were gonna ask, oh, you coming a little earlier today, right? And so I said, I told her, my friend, I said, I'm gonna say, oh, it's just because I paid off my car. I come early when I pay my car off. And then, you know, and then kind of laugh about it, and we'll start talking about paying my car off. Anyway, and I digressed because what I'm saying is, and she says they're not going to care, and they're just kind of, you know, think you're being weird or something like that. And I'm like, nah, it's funny, you know? Anyway, no, she was right. I say it, and the girl up front's like, she didn't even listen. She basically is going through a stage, like, hey, how you doing? You know, and I get it, right? You know, and I'm like, good. She, like, I said, oh, I just paid off. She didn't, like, totally ignored me, like, because she doesn't give a damn about my car being paid off. She doesn't, like, she said, you know, like, the whole, how are you doing? That is totally, like, a script. That is totally her not giving a damn. So, anyway, she was right, I learned, right? But, you know, I kind of knew already, but I was in a good mood, so whatever. Sometimes you do dumb things like that. Anyway, so, I'm almost done here. So, anyway, so yeah, so where are we at with Jerry here? So, he's just murdered her husband. He's just been found. He stole the wallet. Okay, so several years go by, and no suspects. Case is cold. You know, poor Bruce, you know, died, and she's off spending his money left and right, partying, and yeah, I mean, she's gonna get away with it. Well, right after the murder happens, what happens? And I also say this in beta male providers. You know, if they're banging you left and right, the woman is banging you left and right, and then all of a sudden the sex dries up, yeah, it's because she got what she wanted. Well, all the stuff she was doing to Jerry, you know, the manipulation, all that stuff, once he committed the murder of her husband, she got another boyfriend. Yep, got another boyfriend, and was banging him in the same house that she lived there with her. You know, her husband's now dead because he got murdered. She's now bringing the boyfriend to his house. I mean, see what happens when you don't manage your relationships well? Another man will be having sex with your woman in your house. I mean, that's facts. I mean, I'm not proud of this, but, you know, I'll never do it again. It's ridiculous. But if you're in another man's house, having sex with his wife, that's how diabolical this stuff is. Women, they don't care. When they don't care about you, that's what happens. I'm shameful. I'm ashamed. I am ashamed of it. I won't ever do it again. I've been a part of that, you know, and wasn't a good thing to do, right? And so, you know, I'm glad I learned, you know, and that's not good behavior, you know. But anyway, but, you know, I'm glad I know that happens and they're capable of that, you know. But anyway, so, yeah, so Jerry finally figures out, wait a minute, he's not dumb, you know, and he goes, damn it, I think I got played. Well, he does find out. He finds out she wasn't being abused. He finds out there were no pregnancies. He finds out there were no mafia connections. And he got played, and she got a new boyfriend, and you're dirt. Well, what happens? Jerry, I thought to myself, how's he gonna come back from this one? Well, he doesn't. He ends up self-deleting with a rifle, and in his house. But you know, he and I do like what he did. You know, he wasn't gonna let himself. Not that part, obviously. You know, terrible. But he writes a note to his lawyer, basically saying, this is what he wrote: I drove over there and I killed him. She set it up, and he writes everything down. I think he prints out the chat logs. You know, he's got his ID there, he sends the chat logs and you know, a letter to the police department prior to his self-deletion on, you know, what they did, how they set it up, what he did. So, you know, and he's like, he goes, I'm not going to get justice for myself or something like that. I'm out of here, but I'm going to get you, bitch, is what he said, basically. And, you know, have fun, you know, rotting in jail or something like that. He wasn't happy, you know, and he got her. He did get her. They read that letter, and they started investigating her, and they arrested her, and she was convicted after a short trial. It's you know, go look it up, but Sharee Miller, but she ended up getting life in prison. 7 years later, they came back and they said that letter was not admissible or something like that. It was overturned, but then it gets overturned again, so she goes back to jail. I mean, that's how they do it. But she did get out of jail for a little while, but they sent her right back. But when she got out of jail, I guess dating apps were the rage at the time, and she started using dating apps to partying again, and you know, doing diabolical stuff once again. But she's back in jail. Then she finally admitted to it after 20 years. I don't know if she's getting out, because they offered her a plea deal of 15 years, and she turned it down. Women do that a lot. I see this a lot, and I think sometimes women think that they can manipulate more than they can. I see more women going to trial than men. You know, men kind of realize they know. We know, and this is not bad or good. Like, the world is kind to women. And as men, we like this, and women don't get this. We soften the world up for them. You know, we're like, hey, we know they lying or something, and whatever. Or we don't want to argue with them. Just let her, whatever. Your dad just, doesn't, give you, my sister was like that, doesn't give you big consequences, when they mess up. I mean, my sister is, anyway. So women avoid a lot of consequences in life, so they oftentimes don't see, how harsh the world is. And men, we get to see it. Like, we're dumped, we're excluded from sports teams, we suck, like, we see harshness in the world. Anyway, I think that's why a lot of men don't go to trial. But anyway, yeah, so that is the I think that's all on this one. I'm trying to think, because there were just so much on this case, but and I'm gonna probably do a breakdown of her trial testimony, but anyway, like I said, Bruce didn't realize the beta male provider side of dual mating strategy, not a winner. And Bruce Miller, her husband, was in the process of adopting her 3 kids. I mean, we've seen that before. Almost every time the kids get adopted, all this stuff, dude. Anyway, you do not have to do anything for a woman. You do not have to do anything for a woman for her to like you, And the only reason she should like you is because she thinks you're the hottest goddamn thing on earth, and she can't keep her hands off you and out of your pants. I'm serious, man. I mean, but Bruce did not realize the signs of disrespect. He did not realize, when he was not liked. He did not realize when he was not loved, and he paid for it, What else? I think that's about it on this case. That's a Sharee Miller case. Guys, get out there, look smacks, get that mindset right, be the alpha bang, do not be the beta male provider. Know when you see signs of disrespect, maxing out those credit cards. What things do we see on these cases? Sexual affair going on with another man, alleged signs of abuse, and he fell to his demise. And how do women kill men? How do women murder people? They murder people through other men, hit men or other men, poison, and what was the other one? And the shooting in the sleep. So, but yeah, so we see all those. I corroborate what I say. How do you know someone knows what they're talking about? That's all for this one, guys. We'll see you on the next one.